Welcome to the Fantasy Football Prophet podcast, hosted by Craig Phillips and Jeff Torrey. Visit us at fantasyfootballprophet.com. And now your hosts, Craig and Jeff.
Welcome everyone to the Fantasy Football Prophet podcast. I'm Craig Phillips, doing another solo show here as I go down through the Week 8 rankings. This show is going to be quarterbacks and running backs. I'm just going to go through some of my, my top 10, top 15, some interesting picks, I think. Maybe I'm off a little bit on what the expert consensus is this week. Normally, I'd have Jeff here to, bounce rankings off. We'd like to debate those. We'd have guys higher or lower. But today, I'll just go off of the Fantasy Pros expert consensus so far for the week. Kind of see players that maybe I'm a little bit different on than the consensus is and try to tell you why I think that way and go through all that. But make sure you guys go check us out on Twitter. We're at the FF Prophet. Instagram's Fantasy Football Prophet. The website, fantasyfootballprophet.com. You can always go email us at fantasyfootballprophet@gmail.com if you have any start, sit questions, trade questions, anything fantasy football related. Just send us an email or, find us on Twitter, Instagram. Any of those places, we'll be glad to help you out. And also go subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Just search Fantasy Football Prophet. You'll be able to find us there. And all right, I'm just going to get right into some of the ranks. Might as well start out, obviously, with quarterbacks here. Going through what I have here for this week. Again, no Aaron Rodgers, so he's usually the number one guy. He was before this. Now it's going to be Tom Brady for me again. He's my number one player. He's the number one player currently on the expert consensus. Everyone's kind of the same on that. And I'm just going to pretty much lock him in at one almost every week going forward. He has a pretty solid matchup against the Chargers this week. Nothing scary there. So Brady's going to have a good week. He's just going to want to slot him here every time. My number two, Drew Brees. That's not where the experts put him. He was third, so just one spot difference, but a decent matchup with Chicago. You would think it should be better, but Cam Newton did absolutely nothing against the Bears this past weekend. But that could be Cam Newton. We don't know with him. He's up, down, it's hard to judge based off of that. So I'm still going to stick with Drew Brees at number two, even though he hasn't, it's not been the greatest of seasons for him. He's been solid. If you're looking, he's not been a top three option, but he's been decent. He doesn't hurt you too much. The Detroit game was the only game where he was a little bit down on point scoring. The opener against Minnesota at Minnesota was too, but that's kind of understandable. That's a very tough matchup, and he's been solid other than that. You're not getting these big 30-point weeks, but you're at least getting 20s, that kind of thing, low 20s, so you're going to keep playing him. And number three for me this week, it's going to be Carson Wentz. It's a bunch of combination of factors here for Wentz. He's been playing just terrific football. If you're looking here in scoring and fantasy for quarterbacks, he's number two right now behind Alex Smith only. And he has just been amazing. I think he has 17 touchdowns now in the season, if I'm correct. And it's been great to see him really step up in year two. And everyone else seems to think the same. I'm not far off on experts, but he is the number two ranked as of today for the quarterbacks this week. So I'm putting him number three. And so I'm saying he's a top five option for me probably going forward. I don't see how he's not. Maybe next week he'll drop a little bit. He does have Denver. That'll be a tough one. But after that, some of the matchups are going to be pretty favorable for him. And so he's going to keep up there. And this one, San Francisco, 31st this year against the pass for fantasy purposes. They've struggled. Wentz is going to have a great day here. My number four, it's Russell Wilson. Russell's interesting case in a way. He has some really big weeks. Then he's had some two down, probably I'd say three down weeks. The San Francisco game was definitely a down week too. So 3 of his 6 have been great. 3 of the 6 have been bad. He has nothing in the 20s. He's getting these 30-point weeks. A lot of these come in the second half when they're passing, so it's hard to say what Russell Wilson's going to show up. So I'm just going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I like Russell Wilson a lot. Maybe the line looked a little bit better. That was, I know, a lot of the problem was the offense line was struggling. And then you see the Texans. Sometimes you think the Texans are a little bit better maybe than they get a little bit more credit possibly than they without J.J. Watt. It's a lot tougher. They're 18th this year against the pass and fantasy. I like Russell this week. You're starting him if you have him for the most part, so just plug him in and you should be fine there. And number 5, rounding out the top 5, is Kirk Cousins, who's just consistently putting up solid scoring games this year. First 2 games were poor. That's where we started to see, is this going to happen? Or, is he not going to be a top 10 guy anymore? But since then, he's been terrific for fantasy purposes. Not always making the greatest the throws for, in the games, but he's been solid. He's been good. 300-yard games, 3 touchdowns in 2 games, 2 touchdowns in two of the other games. Been solid. He's going to be my number 5. He's going against Dallas this week. Dallas is more mediocre against pass, but, leaning towards the bottom half. So it's a good matchup. Number 6, it's going to be Dak Prescott in the same matchup here as Kirk Cousins here. Dak is actually the expert consensus number 4 this week. And so after my top 6 guys are all actually the same that the experts have. Cousins was the 5th there as well. Russell is the 6th. But Dak is at 4. I put him 6. Maybe, again, I don't know what. Maybe it's just me never seeming to rank Dak Prescott higher. But he's proved that he should be up there. It's just I like the matchups a little bit better maybe for some of these guys. And I do like Russell Wilson, so that's why he slots in ahead of Dak. But you can't deny how good Dak Prescott has been. He's impressed me quite a bit this year. And he's right now the 4th. He's 4th in total scoring for quarterbacks this year, and that is with a bye week. So if you go by scoring per week, he's right there with Deshaun Watson, number 1. So he has been terrific this season. And I'm not saying I put him 6th. I don't think he's going to have a down week. I think it's going to be a great week for him this week. And I'm honestly surprised how good he's been. I thought he'd be okay. I didn't put him in my top 10, but this has definitely surprised me just how good he has been this year. And then the Redskins, they're the 21st against the pass this year. So again, not a very good pass defense there. Cowboys were 22nd. So both of these quarterbacks should have solid games in that one. My number 7 is going to be Phillip Rivers. He's 8th consensus, and this is going against New England, who did have a good week here against Matt Ryan. A lot with that Atlanta game was, it's to do with play calling and watching that back. It just seems like there was opportunities there that they just did not take advantage of, and the play calling wasn't what it should have been. And I believe Phillip Rivers could take advantage of that, and he's been very solid this year again. It's a Phillip Rivers year. He's had a couple bad weeks. He had the week 3, we threw the 3 picks, but he's usually consistent enough. The surprising thing is he did better in the Denver game than he did the Oakland game, which was kind of a surprise there. But he made a respectable game against Denver, so that's nice to see. In New England, yes, they've had, even this past game, Matt Ryan was able to get about 20 standard, not quite, but a decent enough output. And the Patriots are still dead last this year against the pass in fantasy, so you're going to play Phillip Rivers. My number 8 this week, a little bit higher here than the experts have him. It's going to be Jameis Winston. He's 12th currently. I put him 8th. This is just, I like Jameis. He's had a good week last week. He came back from the injury, looked fine. He's had some good solid weeks. I do like Jameis a lot, and that's kind of where I'm going here. Carolina, they've been pretty decent against the pass. I know they're decent. Okay. They're ranked 12th. I just don't feel like they're as good as that. A lot of that rank is based off of 2 terrible games that, they went against San Francisco week 1, and they couldn't do it. 49ers couldn't do anything, and then Trubisky this past week didn't have to do anything. So the numbers are skewed that way. I think the matchup here is maybe people are worried about it a little too much than they should. I'm going to keep Winston at 8. Number 9, I got Deshaun Watson. He's 13th consensus-wise because it's going against Seattle on the road. It's going to be a tough matchup for the rookie. This going against Seattle is never easy. But he's been so good, it's hard to discount him. Even if Houston gets down, you know he's going to be throwing the ball around at the end here and possibly picking up some late touchdowns. But Seattle has been very good against the pass, so that is where the worry is. But with how Deshaun Watson has played, I just have a hard time not ranking him up here. He's a top 10 player for me pretty much every week. So I'm going to go a little bit ahead of where the consensus has him, but I like Watson there. And then number 10, it's going to be Cam Newton. I have him a little lower. He's 7th expert-wise. I put him 10th. He's going against Tampa Bay. So, again, the matchup kind of dictates where the consensus rank has him. The Bucs are 30th against the pass this year. So, yeah, they've been very, very easy to, put up points against. But Cam is just so up and down for me. He had those 2 really great weeks, weeks 4 and 5, and week 6 was pretty solid. But he had terrible weeks in week 2 and 3, a terrible week in week 7. I just don't know what Cam Newton is going to show up. I just have a hard time ranking him higher than 10th. I did do that, but now I'm, in the past couple weeks, I just don't think we should anymore. I'm going to stick him around 10 every week and kind of keep it there. The rest of the guys, I'll just kind of run down here where I have these players quick. Derek Carr put 11th. Again, maybe a little bit higher. He's 15th currently. Tyrod Taylor's 12th for me with going against Oakland. Matt Ryan I have down at 13th at the Jets. I do have him lower than everyone else does. He's expert-wise 9th. But I don't care if this is a good matchup, honestly, at this point with Matt Ryan. The Jets are, they're not good, but they're not the absolute worst against the pass. But Matt Ryan couldn't do it against the Patriots. He's gone back to pre-2016 Matt Ryan. That's basically how I can put it. There's been nothing there. I don't see how I can rank him top 10. 13th is about the best I can do with Matt Ryan. 14th, you got Matthew Stafford here. I'm a little bit higher. He's 17th in the experts, going against Pittsburgh, so it's kind of a, tough matchup here. Steelers are number 2 right now against the pass. And with Stafford, you might just get a check down game. You don't know exactly what you're going to get. He's been a pretty solid option, but yeah, this isn't going to be his best week. But 14th is okay there. Andy Dalton, I have 15th. If you look at the consensus, he's actually 10th this week. It's going against Indianapolis. Boosts him up a little bit. I don't trust Andy Dalton enough to rank him up there. Yeah, he's a good streaming option this week, but he's had one, you would say, good game this year. Maybe the Green Bay game was pretty decent, but that's it. He's had 2 startable games out of 6 this year. I have a hard time trusting Andy Dalton there, so I'm going to stay away. My 16th is going to be Alex Smith. I like Alex Smith and the way he's been playing this year, but that Denver matchup is just so tough. So, yes, I'm going to rank him lower. Maybe I should move him up. Maybe I had a Dalton Stafford here. I'm going to have to think that one through. And actually, you know what? Yeah, I like to do this sometimes on the fly, talking these ranks out. I am going to move Alex Smith up to 14th, past Stafford, past Dalton. Stafford matchup is tough too. Alex Smith has been better than that, so I'm going to do that for the week. But 14th, I would love to rank Alex Smith higher, but it's really hard to do when you have this, tough of a matchup. 17th is Ben Roethlisberger. Not been the same kind of year for Ben. I'm waiting to see something here, and there's not been a lot. He needs a second wide receiver to step up. It hasn't been Martavis Bryant. He needs something more there to really become, a top 10 option again. Josh McCown's my 18th. Case Keenum's my 19th. And then I go 20th. I'm going this week with Trevor Siemian. Not very excited about it, but that's how I'm going to round at the 20. Now I'm going to jump over to running backs, go through some of my top running back picks for the week. My number 1, no surprise, I do it every week. It's Le'Veon Bell going against the Lions. I myself am a Lions fan, so I'm never trusting their defense, even if they've been better this year. Don't trust it at all. Against the run, though, they have been decent. They've been poor. They're in the back half of the league and against the run for fantasy purposes. So I'm going to put Le'Veon Bell number 1. Number 2 is going to be Zeke. Elliott was great last week. Just a massive game, putting up points, about 40 points, standard scoring. He gets Washington this week. Don't worry about the matchup for me with Zeke. Washington's in the top half more of the run defenses, but it's Zeke. He's going to have a good game. You always rank him up here. And then number 3 is where I'm going to actually put in LaShawn McCoy this week, and the experts agree. The consensus has the same top 3 that I put here. And with McCoy, it's about matchup here. He's going against Oakland, and he looked a lot better last week, which was nice to see. Oakland's, in the bottom half of fantasy defenses there against run. It was a great game for McCoy. He was getting touchdowns. He hasn't been overly impressive this year. Doesn't quite look like he did last year, but he's going to put up some yards. I like this week for him. And actually, I like next week for him too. He should have a couple good weeks in a row here Oakland, Jets. Saints have been improved, so maybe not the Saints matchup as much, but it still should be decent. So McCoy's going to have a pretty decent stretch here, I think, coming up. Number 4, Melvin Gordon going against the Patriots. He had the tough Denver matchup last week, and it showed. He wasn't able to do too much. But other than that, he's been great. He's a 2 bad match. The Eagles game, the Denver game. Other than that, he's been terrific every week. And you're going to keep plugging him in. Patriots, we talked about their defense, has been very poor this year. Against the run, it's no different than against the pass. They're 26th against the run, so they're way down there on the list. Number 5, Kareem Hunt. Going against Denver, but I'm going to make him, he's still a top 5 option. We talked about this before. Denver's run defense they were great early on this year, but Darkwa lit them up somehow in week 6. Their pass defense is obviously still much better. And yeah, the Broncos are number 2 against the run yet this year, but I feel like there is opportunities for a player like Kareem Hunt to have a good game. So I'm not going to be too overly concerned. I'm not going to rank Hunt 2 or 3 like I normally do, but 5. About as low I'm going to go with him. Devontae Freeman gets my number 6 pick. He's going against the Jets. He's been very good again. The problem is the last 2 weeks hasn't been able to get as many carries. Only 21 total carries the last 2 weeks, but he's got 140 yards out of it. He's great when he gets the ball. They need to find more ways to scheme and get him the ball again. He can't be getting these just 10 carry games, basically. He needs to get more about 20. Freeman's going to be good if they get him the ball. And the Jets, a bottom half defense, so it's a good matchup for him. Number 7, I'm going Mark Ingram. Since Peterson's been gone these last 2 weeks, Ingram's finally got his chance to shine. 25 carries and 22 carries, over 100 both times, getting touchdowns. He is great when he gets an opportunity, and I'm definitely happy to see that. And he's going against the Bears, middle of the pack defense, but Ingram's been great, and I can see that continuing. Then number 8 is going to be the running back on the other side of that game, Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard has been getting quite a bit of carries. He has some weeks where he looks a lot better than others, but the volume's there, and that's pretty much all that matters. If you go past the last 5 weeks, the lowest amount of carries he's gotten is 18. So that's going to continue, and he should be a top 10 option this week going against the Saints. Number 9, Carlos Hyde going against the Eagles. The 49ers, the way they've treated this run game has been odd this year in the preseason, all that hype of maybe Hyde's not the back. It was going to be Joe Williams or, then Matt Breida. But Hyde was able to get all the carries first 4 weeks, and then week 5 happened where Breida had so many more carries, just snaps than Hyde did. But now these last 2 weeks, it's kind of gone back in Hyde's favor. He has much more of the snap count. It's not been great, but he's getting the workload. The Eagles have been a very tough defense, though, but this is just a week where not a lot of great options. People won't buy, so Hyde still makes my top 10. And then number 10, rounding out, Jay Ajayi going at Baltimore. Ajayi has not been exactly what we had hoped for this season. Been kind of, a little bit of a disappointment, I would say, but at least there is volume there. That's the big thing with him. He's the last 3 weeks, 25 carries, 26 carries, 23 carries. He has not had one rushing touchdown yet this year, though. That's where the problem's coming in. It's going to be the Thursday night game, so you never quite know, I guess, with Thursday night. The Ravens, though, have been a very poor run defense. That's where we're hoping to see something good from Ajayi. So 10th, I think that's definitely fair for Ajayi. Then start to run down a couple of these, maybe not talk about all of them, but Doug Martin's my 11th. I do like Doug Martin. I think he's going to get opportunity. Carolina, it's an interesting defense. Sometimes they look good, sometimes they don't. I don't exactly know what to expect from them. They've been up there towards the top, though, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I do like Doug Martin a little bit. And then Joe Mixon is actually the one I do like to talk about here. He's my number 12. Expert-wise, he's number 11 for the week. He's going against the Colts, though. And the Colts defense right now is the second to last run defense in the league. But Joe Mixon, to me, I love Joe Mixon as a player here. I think the talent's there. When you watch him, you can sometimes you just sense something. You can see something about a player, and I see that in Joe Mixon. And if the Bengals can just get him the ball a little bit more, I think it's going to be great for him. This is the week for him to shine going against the Colts. So Joe Mixon, I just feel like there's a big week coming from him. And I got C.J. Anderson 13. Alvin Kamara jumps up to 14th for me. Lamar Miller's 15th going against Seattle. It's a tougher matchup. Chris Thompson's in my top 20 at number 16. Tevin Coleman's number 17. Christian McCaffrey's number 18. I've been a little disappointed in Christian McCaffrey. But again, this is it's a heavy bye week. And I mean, McCaffrey hasn't been great, but he's not going to absolutely kill your game. And if it's PPR, I'm going on my standard ranks. PPR is probably definitely much safer. Amir Abdullah gets into the ranks at number 19, and then Jerick McKinnon's number 20. Yes, I am a little bit lower on Jerick McKinnon than the consensus, who has him at 15th. I just worry that you can't you don't know how this split is going to happen between McKinnon and Murray. It is a good matchup going against Cleveland, but it's hard to trust what exactly is going to happen. Actually, it's not even that great of a matchup against Cleveland. Looking at it, I'm going to pull up some numbers here. Cleveland's actually 7th best fantasy run defense this year. So it's not quite what you would expect there. But still, it could go either way. Murray might get a bunch of work and McKinnon's not going to have to. It's just tough to tell. It's really tough to tell. So I'm going to keep McKinnon down there at 20th for me because I don't know what to do with him. But Murray, I did rank Murray 25th. So I do trust McKinnon a little more than Murray. I just don't know what the split's going to be. Let's see, the Oakland running backs, I'll just talk about them. I put them 26th and 27th. Most people have Richard ahead of Washington. I actually put Washington one spot ahead of Richard. I've talked about that in the waiver show. I do like Washington a little better. I just don't know if that's how the split will happen. I'll rank it as such, but we'll see. The Colts running backs, I rank them 30th and 31st. Gore, 30th. Mack, 31st. I really think we're going to start to see more Marlon Mack here and possibly see what he is capable of. And this could be the week again. I'm hoping this is the week in that same game. I would love to see Joe Mixon and Marlon Mack get the majority of the work because I do believe they are by far the best running backs on those teams. I mean, I like Frank Gore. I really do like Frank Gore. And he's remained a very solid option even into his age 34 here. But he's not the player I believe that Marlon Mack is at this point. And I'm not even saying Marlon Mack's a great player, but there's something there. There's some explosiveness, some excitement that the Colts don't have there. And it'd be nice to see if Mack could, pull something off there. Mike Gillislee, I dropped all the way to 41st this week. Too bad Jeff's not here to go over this one because Gillislee, without the touchdowns, what do you do with him? It's been really tough sledding for him these last 5 weeks. 3.1 points, and this is all in standard. 3.1, 4.9, 5.2, 2.4, 3.1. It's been rough. I don't know how I could possibly rank him higher. I don't know. I don't know how you can do it with him at this point. It's really tough to see. Unless the Patriots are getting the ball on the 1, 2, or 3 yard line every time, Gillislee doesn't have much of a shot. And it's hard. You can't predict that. You can't predict touchdowns. That's the main thing in this. If you have a touchdown dependent running back, it's a tough thing to do. You can't really predict these touchdowns. So, I think that's going to do it for the quarterbacks and running back ranks for the week. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll go over my wide receivers, tight ends. I'll talk about, any news. As we get a little further in the week, maybe we'll have some more injury news. We'll have a little bit more situations. We'll know that's coming up. Be able to go over all of that. If you guys have any questions in the meantime, make sure you hit us up on Twitter at the FF Prophet or Instagram, Fantasy Football Prophet. You can answer some of the questions on the show as well. You can email us, fantasyfootballprophet@gmail.com. So if you come up with any questions, anything like that, definitely I'll try to answer some more questions on the show tomorrow. There'll be another solo show for me tomorrow, and then as well for the Thursday night, Friday morning episode. And then Jeff's going to be back, I believe, starting with the Sunday night recap. So only two more solo shows from me before Jeff returns. We'll be able to get the normal schedule going again for the podcast. But thanks to everyone that's listening, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.